Lead the Charge.
All right, welcome to the Lead the Charge podcast. This episode is going to be a pretty cool one. This is our 12th episode, and today we have a really interesting guest and probably one of our favorite people, not necessarily just in the realm of the world that we'd like to talk about in terms of leadership and community and solar, but just in the general sense of things. We like to call him Dan Bezos, but his actual name and the name that you guys probably know him by is Dan Balaban. If you're wondering why we call him Dan Bezos, you're going to have to stick around to find out, because the story will reveal itself in terms of the level and the magnitude of things that he's been doing in the solar space. But we're happy to have you. I mean, Dan, welcome to, I guess, our office actually for the first time as well too, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Johns. Great to be here. You got a nice office. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming actually. I know Kai and I, since we started this podcast, ironically enough, have had you at the top of the list to come on the podcast for a really long time. But the funny thing is, you couldn't be joining this podcast at a more interesting time in regards to where renewables is today. But before we get into that, we want to know a little bit about you, and even the individuals that are watching this podcast, I'm sure they want to know a little bit about you. In our opinion, we consider you to be one of the biggest developers in the utility scale solar marketplace in Alberta, Canada, and maybe even in North America. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown about who you are and underneath that premise?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Toronto. I moved to Calgary when I was 9, but something people probably don't know about me. So I grew up in Toronto, and most people in Toronto that had a place outside of the city had a cottage on a lake. You know, people that were fortunate enough. But my family, we had a farm, and it was like a bare bones farm. My dad turned the tool shed into our living accommodations. We had no running water, and we had an outhouse. So I left the city to go to this very bare bones farm on the weekend. Anyways, so spent my weekends there. When I was 9, moved to Calgary, grew up here, continued to grow appreciation of nature and the land. Just we're on the footsteps of the Rocky Mountains here. Started my career in tech. I've always been interested in technology. I have a degree in computer science. Started my career in technology consulting. Started my first company in my mid-20s. It was a company called Roughneck. And what we did is we helped oil and gas companies manage a whole bunch of operational data, including their greenhouse gas emissions. This is back in the early 2000s. So this is like pretty early on in the conversation. It gave me early insight into what I could see as looming environmental challenges that the energy industry was facing. Had an exit from my software company at the age of 30. And I knew the next thing I wanted to do was something green, and kind of did my research and landed on renewable energy development when with no previous experience in power or in renewable energy, but with some capital to invest and I guess some naivety and optimism, I started GreenGate 17 years ago with my brother Jordan.
Yeah, and we've heard so many different versions of this story. Do you know what my favorite one is? But we had the luxury of meeting your mom, and the best place to meet people is usually on common ground. And one of the things that we love is basketball, right? I think for those of you who are watching, you can see the set here. We got the Calgary Surge in the background here. For those who aren't aware of the Calgary Surge, what have you been doing with your life? But for those who aren't aware, it's the Canadian Elite Basketball League's next champion. So Calgary Surge in their first year made it all the way to the finals. They're an awesome team, but there's a lot of awesome teams right across the country that's playing right now. And you guys have, I believe you guys are right front and behind the home net. You guys have like courtside seats, at least in the first year you guys did. And we had a chance of meeting your mom there. And she had a really interesting perspective in regards to who you were or how you came to where you got to. And I don't know if you know that we kind of grilled your mom when we first met her.
Did not know that.
And
who knows what she said? Right, I'm curious, or genuinely curious.
I have the habit of doing this. It is the guy's parents as well too. But it was so interesting. Her perspective on you was so flat. She's like, he's always been like this. She said, I always knew Dan was going to do great things, and he's doing exactly what he's meant to do. And it was really, like, you obviously don't know your mom the same way that, like, a stranger would, right? But she's, like, so calm and, like, just full of joy and happiness, which is kind of one of the best things about, like, every human being is typically their mothers. But maybe diving into a little bit of that, like, did you always know that this is what you were meant for, like, doing these amazing, great things and, like, participating in society in the way that you have been?
Well, thanks, Mom, first of all. Wow, that's a nice compliment. I think it's probably the way I grew up, my mom's influence. But I'm the grandchild of 4 Holocaust survivors, and for me, at a very young age, kind of had a serious view on life, and I was taught that we all need to have a purpose, and that purpose is to do something good in the world. It's just something that is a core belief of mine. I think it was something that was taught probably from my cultural, religious background, but also the way my family raised me. That carried through my grandparents. Spent a lot of time with them when I was young, and then carried through with my late father, Jack, who was a tremendous mentor in my life. And my mom, who's still around today, I guess, talking me up at the Surge games, which is awesome.
I don't think she was expecting it.
No, probably not. I think she. Yeah.
We're both still so curious, right? Yeah. So we couldn't help ourselves. And and what's interesting? I think that hardship that you had early on in life, of being from that lineage, do you find that helped shape you into who you are today?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely has. So the core belief that we're all here to do something good, I really believe that. And it's not just about business. Like, business is just one avenue that one could do good. I happen to be good at business, so that's the way I've decided to direct my energy. But you could be a teacher, you could be an accountant, a spiritual leader, a politician, a content creator. There's lots of ways you can do good, and doing good is really doesn't even have to be a grand thing. It's just kind of the way we treat each other individually, right? Every interaction you have with a person is an opportunity to leave a positive impression and maybe share something.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think one of the concepts that I've been kind of battling with lately, not battling, I suppose, just trying to be able to filter down to, is that measuring stick of what is it you govern your life by, right? And the way that I'm looking at things right now, and you touched on something pretty interesting there, is there's no good or bad. There's no wrong or right. There's just better or worse. And I'm trying to validate that entire process. And I think speaking to that specifically, the better or worse, we're in a pretty hotly contested part of the world right now, right? Like, I think it's fair to say that Alberta as a whole, and for those who don't know Alberta, like, how would you summarize it, Kai?
Like cowboy country in a way, I guess, but hard to say. Like, summarize Alberta would be a great place for opportunity that usually reduces red tape, but I feel like we've lost a little bit of that over the last little while. Yeah. I think the people here are very open to change. They're open to opportunities. And I think the province is a place that always has prospered through different changes. And I think is always a province that kind of stands up the Canada side of things. But yeah, the people here are super nice, I think, overall. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's what I would add to it.
Yeah.
What you guys would say?
Well, I think Alberta's a place with a tremendous amount of opportunity and potential. But I think, we're dealing with the politics of division. Mm-hmm. That's what I think is, so there's all this noise about the, renewable energy industry now. But there's a lot of conflict on a lot of different issues. Like, if you look at pretty much every major issue in the world that we're dealing with today, it's framed in a very binary way. You need to choose one side or the other. There is no middle ground. Energy is one of those issues. It's probably the most important one in Alberta because it dominates our economy, and it's a highly polarized topic. And I think we're seeing the politics of division playing out. So, the way I see it is you've got the federal government who is trying to push a very aggressive net zero by 2035 grid target. That's very ambitious. Extremely ambitious.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's impossible, but certainly ambitious. And then on the other side, you've got the province pushing back really hard on it. And I think the renewable energy industry is caught in the crossfire. And, the fight doesn't serve us at all. Because if really what we're trying to do is solve the climate problem, solve the sustainable energy problem, we should be working on solutions. We shouldn't be fighting. As a longtime entrepreneur in this space, it's very off-putting for me.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about it?
It's been shared on this podcast before, so I have this life mantra, and kudos to Kai. He's younger but very wise in his own way, and he kind of got me onto this whole live your life by a statement. And the one that I came up with was reality is neutral. So what that ultimately means is that I have to live on both extremes or entertain both extremes to be able to find out what the middle ground is. And I think that's where Alberta is a good representation of the world in certain ways. I wouldn't say in all ways. There's no one perfect place on the planet where you can have a hotbed or a testing bed for everything. But Alberta is actually a place where you can say a bunch of really mean things and try a bunch of really mean stuff but not kill anybody. And that's where I think, but it goes on the good side as well too. You can try a lot of awesome things and say a lot of awesome things and also, not kill anybody. So I think for me, when it comes down to this topic specifically, and maybe we want to give some context here, is that there was a massive amount of renewable energy projects coming into the province, primarily between wind and solar, that was worth, I guess I don't even know what the value of it would be, like billions and billions of dollars. But let's equate it down to what actually matters to Albertans: jobs.
Yeah.
Tons and tons, thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs. No really different than oil and gas jobs, I would say. They're not permanent long-term jobs, but they're at least for a couple of years until the rest of the industry establishes. We're in the residential sector, you're in the utility sector. Our jobs tend to be more long-term. We have quite a few staff members now that are over 5 years, which is super cool. But at the utility scale, they're still quite long-term in some ways, right? But that was a piece that got sacrificed, is that, from my perspective, is that the billions of dollars is fine, but it's the jobs and the diversity and the opportunity that people got to be able to experience life in a different way that kind of got snatched away from us. Now, is it permanent or not? That's the piece that's kind of being discussed right now. So there's a moratorium. Basically, all these projects got frozen, and the government was doing an analysis with some governing bodies, ASO, so on and so forth, Alberta Utilities Commission, to figure out what restrictions need to be put into place so that renewables don't have the same impact on our environment that oil and gas does. The result was 75% of Alberta has been blocked out now. I believe it was the number, right? Which, yeah, and it was basically 35 kilometers from any site that's deemed to be environmentally protected underneath whatever framework is out there, which the framework hasn't come out exactly yet.
The government just released the map this week.
Just released the map this week, so I haven't had a chance to catch up to that yet, but is that a good summary of what's going on right now?
It's a good summary of what's going on right now. So so I've been in this industry for 17 years now. It's a pretty long time. And developing renewable energy in the heart of oil country has not been easy. But if you look at over the last probably 5 years, Alberta has been leading the country in renewable energy development. One of the top places in North America. Like 90% of all renewable energy that was built in Canada was being built in Alberta. Like, think about that. Like, that's such a great narrative, right? And I'm a big advocate of the and. Like, it's been framed as oil and gas versus renewables, but it's an and. We can be developing both of those resources. And what a great example. We were doing it, right? And Alberta's all based on free market principles. So there was, no government subsidy involved in this. It was all based on the free market. You had, some of the world's largest companies that were coming into Alberta and buying renewables directly from renewables projects like Amazon and Microsoft and, some of the big banks and some of the oil companies. Like, it was happening. The market was working. Why we would kill our renewable energy boom, to make no mistake about it, that's what the government did. I don't think they killed the industry. The industry will continue, but it was booming.
Yeah.
We killed a booming industry, and one that is an important element of, I think, where we want to go in the future. And I think we ended up doing it for political reasons, and I think that's absurd.
Yeah, and I think you asked this a direct question. I suppose we should give a direct answer. Like, what's our take on this? It hurts. Honestly, it hurts. It feels. There was times when I was a young individual growing up in Alberta, and I think maybe Kai, you should share this because not many people have this story about you. But Dan, you brought up the Holocaust, right? That's obviously something that is a very sensitive topic. Kai's from the other end of that stick. He's German, like born and raised Swiss German. But
I know we've chatted about this before. Yeah.
And one of the saddest things, and I don't know if we shared this story, one of the saddest things that I experienced about Kai's story is the racism that he faced when he moved here. So he came here when you were young, and you had a German accent, right?
Yeah.
And believe it or not, he got called pretty inappropriate terms of what a population of people weren't all behind. And generally, as a rule of thumb, from what I've always heard, is that Germans are very adventurous people and they want to see the world, but the Germans that leave in that period of time left because they didn't agree with some of the stuff that happened in that country. And his family was one of those families, but they came here for other reasons, for environmental purposes and stuff too. And why I'm bringing this piece up is that this moment in time reminds me of those experiences that I had. One of the communities that I moved in Calgary, I left because of the amount of racism that I experienced there. And I don't want to name the community. Maybe it's gotten better. But, walking down the street or going to your neighbor's house for barbecue and getting like slurs yelled at you is not enjoyable. I never experienced that in other parts of the country, but I have here. And that's what it reminded me of, is that not necessarily the same framework per se, but the same underlying tone is that something doesn't fit in, so you're not allowed to be here. And that's what it really felt like. And I know that's maybe a potentially extreme place to take it, but if I'm speaking openly and honestly, it hit the same part of my spirit. That's exactly where that same shot went. And yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying. I mean, I'm of Jewish background, and there's a terrible conflict going on in the Middle East right now, and it's spilled over and created a lot of tension here in Canada. Another issue, example of that. One of the things that I was taught by my grandparents is that they went through a lot of effort to eventually come here to Canada to create a better life for our family, and I was taught to be very grateful for what we have in Canada, but never take it for granted, because peace is a fleeting thing. It's
that's wise.
So I think we all have to, we as individuals, it starts with us as individuals, how we treat each other, right? Like we shouldn't be exporting conflicts to Canada. I think it's, there's a lot of conflicts in the world. It's absolutely terrible. Everybody has a right to grieve and feel pain for it, but to export those conflicts here and to express hate towards one another here is a very, very sad thing. That's what makes Canada great. It's a place that we should, all be able to, get along in a civilized manner. And even if we disagree, we should be able to have a cup of coffee and discuss it and disagree, not fight, right? So, fortunately, it's not violent. The issue is not unfolding in a violent manner. Hopefully it never does. But, short of that, it sure seems like, an attack on a growing industry. And ultimately, it affects the individuals that are involved in it, that are trying to earn a livelihood, trying to look into the future, and ultimately, I think, trying to do good in the world. Like, we're trying to help the world become more sustainable, address the climate issue. We're not trying to shut any other industry down. I'll try to find a way to get along. That's my I guess idealistic way of looking at things.
No, and that's a good way of looking at it. I remember the Thanksgiving dinner analogy I used to use. So this is how I look at renewables, specifically in Alberta. Is first and foremost, what's our most valuable resource here? It's the oil and gas that we have here. If you're being honest, and the only reason why is because it's finite. Whereas a renewable resource is generally abundant. It's not infinite, but it is abundant, and it's there. It's going to be consistent. And the way that I look at it from like a Thanksgiving dinner perspective is, what's your favorite part of your Thanksgiving dinner? What do you like?
Well, just being with my family.
And what about the meal itself? Like, what's your favorite? Is it usually the turkey? Is it the Brussels sprouts? Like, what do you really love?
Well, I love turkey and stuffing.
Yeah, turkey and stuffing and stuff. Those are usually the two favorites, right? That's how I look at the oil and gas, is like, it's the turkey and stuffing. Usually it's, even at most typical Thanksgiving dinners, it's the least amount of quantity is the turkey and stuffing. It's the stuff that tends to get eaten first because it's the best, the most flavorful. You'll always have a crap load of peas, carrots, Brussels sprouts, potatoes, whatever it is. But that's what the renewables is. There's a huge amount of it. It doesn't necessarily taste as good, but it's there, and there's a whole whack load about it. And the way that I believe it is that whatever's the most valuable, maybe it should be saved for last. And that's how I've always kind of eaten my wheels. I'm a little bit weird with that. I'll eat all the stuff that my parents were forcing me to eat when I was a kid. It's like, get all the carbs and everything else in, and then the favorite part of the meal I'll save for the very last and just really cherish it. And I believe that's how our resources here should be managed, is that those resources, knowing that they're finite, are so precious that we should be treating them with that absolute respect, and then utilize the other resources that are available in abundance because they just are there. And going back to the piece that you were talking about in terms of like gratitude, I think we're like raised the same way. Is that I think we're forgetting gratitude potentially in this province, is that if we look at the energy mix, is that if we had gratitude towards that energy source, then we'd start looking at it from the perspective of, holy crap, okay, we should get renewables in resource as quickly as possible, because like you had mentioned, it's booming, and then those precious pieces we can conserve for a longer period of time and use more thoughtfully. And it's almost like an armchair approach to life, is that if you know you have something, then you should actually sit back and use it with confidence versus rushing to the front of the line and just spoiling everybody's time, right? Which is kind of what's being done. So it is an interesting time for sure.
Yeah. Unfortunately, capitalism, the capitalist system, focuses on making money quick. So,
Bigger issue,
yeah. But there's lots of great that can be done within the capitalist system. But I think it requires some strategic thought around it. Yeah. So I agree with what you're saying. Maybe to add a different perspective on it, or add the perspective on it, we need all forms of energy, right? Like the energy needs of the world are growing. We have a growing population, we have growing economic activity, and then in the case of electricity, we have growing uses for electricity through the electrification of vehicles, buildings, industry, data centers, AI. Like, we need a lot of energy. And then on the other side, we also have this goal around sustainability, right? Like, we're concerned about the sustainability of human civilization with the way we're consuming our resources. So there's that, push-pull between them. But, any moves that are stopping the development of new sources of energy, be it renewable, be it oil and gas, whatever it is not helpful in a world where we have an energy deficit. And the province has an energy deficit, like we saw here in the wintertime. We had the grid alerts, right?
Yeah.
So the big, all overblown, and finger pointing. Unfortunately, some finger pointing at renewables. The reality is it was a bunch of things failed, right? A bunch of gas fire generators failed. Renewables weren't producing. So we had grid alerts. What that means is we need more sources of energy in the mix. We don't need less. And these moves, I think, unfortunately, run a serious risk of slowing down the investment of all sources of power generation in the province, not just renewables, because investors like certainty, and they don't generally get freaked out by extreme moves.
Yeah, and I think you touched upon it, right? Like the red tape removal.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem.
Yeah,
Because usually, and I'm sure you can relate to this, but usually in the Alberta market, that was like a big thing why people would come here, right? It was that governments or bodies would always kind of support the next thing, or like the economy growing here, right? And I think one of the big aspects too is that we did campaigns to get people to come to Alberta. And then this type of thing, like Gersh was saying, is you're creating jobs for those individuals that are maybe struggling to afford housing in Ontario or whatever in BC. And then they're coming here and they're having to deal with these uncertainties of like thousands of jobs that potentially could have been working in to support their kind of families. So yeah, like the red tape reduction, I think, has totally gone away. I think it's creating more of it, which is not really the Alberta that we're used to and kind of growing up here. So yeah, I think it's something that we definitely need to be able to address. And going back to your point with the renewables and the oil and gas, I think that was something from day one, that when we started Zeno, it was, we're not here to take out oil and gas industry. We're here to figure out solutions for energy. And we're here to make Alberta's energy profile more robust and industry leading on a global level, right? And I think that that's been forgotten. And it's come down to, I don't want to use the words, but almost the greed of a small group. And it goes back to your story that you're saying with kind of the German and Jewish side of things, is that it was this group that now has blown it up into this bigger thing, right? And they're the ones that now have this power of kind of being public with it and being radical with it. I think that's created so many issues and headlines and all that kind of stuff. So it's not good overall for the whole industry. And even oil and gas, it doesn't help it in that way, in my point of thing, right? Because there was a lot of mistakes made with the orphan wells and all that kind of fun stuff here in Alberta, where I think we're already approaching it better in the renewable space. I think that's just being glazed over. So,
yeah. There was already a lot of rules in place that were regulating the renewables industry, before the moratorium was put in.
Yes.
And the reason that was given for the moratorium is that there were certain critical things that needed to be addressed, like viewscapes and reclamation and agricultural land, right? So, so viewscapes, yes, we have pristine viewscapes in Alberta, but I find it unusual that the renewable energy industry is the only industry that is being targeted for its potential viewscape impacts. Yeah. Like there's, gas plants and buildings and grain elevators. It's all part, pump jacks. It's all part of the landscape. So I find it unusual that it's singling out one industry to the exclusion of every other industry. As it relates to reclamation, sure. Yeah, I think it is a good sense that renewable projects should have to post some type of reclamation. A lot of companies were already doing that, including mine, in absence of regulations. But I'll point out we have the oil and gas industry that has a reclamation mess. It still hasn't been cleaned up. And then agricultural use. I mean, every single farmer or landowner that signs up for a renewable energy project does so voluntarily. It's their choice. They make an economic decision. Is it better to farm the sun or farm, wheat, canola, barley, whatever it is? So I think there's potential, land ownership, private land ownership, concerns that need to be addressed. Anyways, none of it required a moratorium. These are all things that could have been reviewed concurrent with the industry going ahead. I think the moratorium was extreme, unnecessary. It was like taking a jackhammer to a nail. It was like... But anyways, yeah, here we are. It happened. It's come off. We have to, now deal with it. But I think enough people, need to speak up. Like, enough with these divisive, extreme politics. Yeah. Like, people get... It seems in today's world that people get very motivated by negative emotions.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Like, if you look at social media, how often are you really excited by nice stories, usually excited by the angry. We're all victims of it, right? We all click on it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It feeds this this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think people should be more passionate about the middle. I don't like where are the people who are passionate about finding solutions, taking us to the future, doing good. I think we need to coalesce around that concept more.
Yeah, and that's why I love that phrase that I was alluding to earlier on, is that all the conversations happen on the extremes, but the action happens in the middle. And that's where everybody feels like they win, but also feels like they lose. And that's the best thing possible, because if you have to lose a little bit of skin to gain something, then you're committed. And maybe we should talk about that, because Kai was alluding to something else earlier on in regards to when we first came into the industry. We have some pretty funny stories. I think there was one good one that's worth sharing, and maybe we can add some humor into the conversation. So when we first started the company out, it's almost 9 years ago now. We used to get invited to random events because we were that young entrepreneur grind, go to every single coffee, have every single conversation, and meet as many people as possible. And one party that we got invited to was a Stampede party. Now, the Stampede party that we got invited to is by it was a land solutions company, right? Where basically land solutions companies, they find they deal with stakeholders, find landowners, find project developers, and they kind of bring the whole conversation together. And this land solutions company was really eager to work in the renewable space. And at that time, we weren't as focused as we are now, where we're residential only. We have that goal of 1 million homes. We would do a little bit of everything because there wasn't much solar going on at that time. And we went into this Stampede party, and it was nothing but there's a really good genetic advantage in Alberta. Everybody that's in the oil and gas industry there's a huge amount of diversity. But at this specific party, it was all like big farmers, like big boys. And Kai and I walked in, and right away we kind of got shooed off into a corner. And you're like, hey, like the majority of people that are in this space are like, they're either landowners or oil and gas people. It's probably good if you guys don't interact with them. And we got pulled into a corner and then separately hosted from the rest of the Stampede party. And for us, Kai and I are looking at that. We're like, is this actually happening right now? So maybe we should have brought cowboy hats or stuff like that. I was wearing the boots, but or like my version of the boots. But it was a funny experience. Now that didn't rub us the wrong way. What that told us is that anytime we saw something like that happen, that there was a massive opportunity to be able to bring something into play. And then for the next 7-8 years, that was the case. The volume kept on increasing, the conversations kept on happening, and then we are where we are today. Now, to add one more layer here, and the layer of hope, one of the hardest parts about this period of time in Alberta and this specific moratorium is that the communication is lacking. My hope is that maybe there's a longer term vision at play here that we potentially aren't privy to, that might help this industry get back into the position that it is, and we just don't have that information available to us. It's a big hope, but I mean, those are usually the best ones to lean into, right? So I don't know. I think if, like you said, conversations like this keep on happening, people keep on voicing their opinions and frustrations and sharing them and creating a little bit of that negative news or negative connotations in relation to opinions, and we keep on turning that volume up, that maybe that hope will come back to life. And I think, as bad as it sounds, I think that's all we can do right now. There's not much else. Everything is frozen in the state of purgatory, right? So,
yeah, there's a bit of it's like a stun grenade was set off in the industry. So it's not just the moratorium. There's also things that are being reviewed about the power market fundamentally. Yeah, which doesn't just impact renewables, impacts all forms of generation. So yeah, that all needs to be sorted through. But you know what? It's not. Renewables is a fast-growing industry all over the world. Alberta's not the only place. I mean, it happened to be booming. I feel very proud of the role that my company played in, I think, helping position Alberta in that way. And so it's kind of personally disappointing for me to see it turn. But there's renewables that are being built all over the world. Any place that needs new power generation is going to be bringing on new renewables, and industry that ebbs and flows. Like, you don't have constant, like, straight up growth. The trend from, point A to point B is up, but the ride is it's like a roller coaster. And I've been on it for 17 years. I've seen it multiple times. I haven't quite seen a self-inflicted wound like the province just did, but I have seen other, lots of other turbulence along the way. If you're in this industry, you're probably in it because you're passionate about the issue, right? To a certain extent, and you just need to be prepared for that turbulent ride.
Yeah, and I suppose we should be fair as well too. This isn't the only place this happened in Canada. I think it was in 2019 when Sask Power killed the whole microgen market. And so we've seen this happen before in different levels or different sectors within the same framework. And that wasn't the intention, was to kill the industry. I think it was to be able to bring in more reform, but it didn't. It landed flat, unfortunately. And speaking of that, let's play hypothetical. And I think this is always a good exercise to be able to help pave a path forward. What should the conversation have looked like from your perspective?
Well, the conversation should have been, renewables are growing very fast, and therefore these are things that we're concerned about, and we should review them. And that's it, review them. But coming out of left field and surprising everybody with a moratorium, that was an extreme move. Like, reviewing stuff and continually trying to improve our regulatory framework, those are all things that we should be doing. In terms of the power market itself, the power market, I think, has been working. It's been attracting a ton of investment into Alberta. We've had high power prices the last number of years, but we have a bunch of new generators that are coming online anyways that we're going to lower our power prices. That's how a market works. Prices go up and down, up and down. You look at, there's an average, you have the mean, but you're bouncing up and down along the mean. And that's really how the power market's been working in Alberta. Some years the prices are high, some years the prices are low. When the prices are low, everybody's complaining that they're going to lose their shirts, and when prices are high, people are screaming that the companies are making too much money, right? That's capitalism, right? And if you come in and mess with the market midway through a cycle, that's not capitalism. And you would think a conservative place like Alberta would be respecting that more than others. And the behaviors at the moment a bit is quite unusual.
Yeah, it does seem in some ways very anxiety ridden. Like, a lot of the decisions that we're seeing right across the board, or even outside of our sector, seem to be coming from a more human place than a tactical place. But once again, I'm not a professional at any of those types of things, so I'm simply just an observer. And switching gears a little bit here, then. So let's talk about the technological side. I think beyond just the political issue that we have right now, the technology is something that isn't necessarily that well understood. One of the coolest projects that I think exists in the province, and maybe some people know about, is the Travers project, right? That was kind of, is that your, I wouldn't necessarily call it, is it fair to call it your swan song?
I wouldn't say it's my swan song. I'd say it's my crowning jewel, crown jewel of my achievement in my career.
Well, if you were true to the name, to the Bezos name, I thought your next step was going to be building rocket ships. So it's your best project to date, right? So ideally with that in mind, can you give us the specs on that project and the kind of impact that it has on a place like Alberta? And if you can and I'm not sure if you have these numbers, but would you be able to normalize it down to like the individual level, down to like a person's home, like that kind of impact of that energy that it's providing and how that system works? And for reference, it's a solar farm. It's spelled like it sounds like the Travers project in Alberta. It's amazing. There's some really cool footage. There's a lot of overhead footage now as well that you can see online. But if you don't mind just taking a whack at it, explaining it from that perspective. Yeah,
so the Travers Solar Project is Canada's largest solar project by far. It's a 465 megawatt AC, almost 700 megawatt DC project. What that means is it consists of about 1.3 million solar panels spread across about 3,000 acres of land in southern Alberta and Vulcan County. It uses some really cool technology. So it uses solar photovoltaic panels, just like the ones you put on people's roofs. But a couple things that I think address some issues that Alberta faces, which is our snow in the winter, right? So it's got bifacial technology. So it produces energy off the front of the panel, but also off the back of the panel. So in the wintertime, when the snow falls, the light reflects off the snow, and that energy is captured on the back side of the panel. It heats up the panel, the snow melts off the front of the panel, and you deal with the snow cover issues. And then in addition to that, it also has what's called single axis tracking, where it tracks the sun from east to west throughout the day, which maximizes the amount of energy that it produces. So basically, all in all, it's a project that produces all 4 seasons of the year consistently. In the wintertime, it produces less because our daylight hours are shorter. In our summertime, it produces a lot more because our daylight hours are longer. And it's a project that was about $750 million to build, produces enough energy for more than 150,000 homes. Probably one of the most interesting things is Amazon is buying the power under a long-term contract in order to meet its net zero commitments. The investor in the project was a large Danish fund called CIP, Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, making their first investment in Canada in renewable energy. A lot of really cool, cool things about that project, and it's operating. It's been operating for probably about 1.5 years now.
Yeah,
It's that long.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Oh,
Yeah.
What does that take to build? Well,
About 18 months. Can I tell you the story of how we came up with Travers?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so we've been doing renewables for the last 17 years. We started in wind. Wind was matured quicker than solar and kind of was better for Alberta, but things have changed. The technology around solar that's then. Now they're both highly viable. So one of the projects we developed early on was at the time the largest wind project in Canada. So we like doing big projects. We like doing the first stuff.
that's where
Yeah, and it's pretty cool that we've been able to pull them off. Anyways, so in 2017, we went to a solar conference up in Edmonton. We've been going to conferences for years. We go to all the various conferences, and the message was, we're almost at the point where solar is going to be economic on a standalone basis with, cost parity, right? You see the charts, the cost declines, and whatever. And you can see the trend, and it was showing 2020 is the point where the crossover is going to happen. So went back with my team, just chilling out after the conference, reflecting on it. Can I swear?
Yeah, good.
So then I'm like, well, let's just build the biggest fucking solar project that anybody's seen. Like, we did it in wind, let's do it in solar. Like, if we believe these numbers, let's do it. And we did it.
That's pretty awesome.
Few simple words created a crazy project.
Yeah, it is weird. That is actually pretty good. Yeah.
But things just start with, it starts with a bold vision, right? Like, obviously, it's more than the idea, but you got to start with the idea. And if you can be committed to that idea, no matter how committed, and you can actually kind of visualize it. I'm a big believer in kind of manifesting, but we don't want to get it done. But anyways, I believe that if you can like truly visualize something like in detail, like see it happening, and commit to it, amazing things can happen. And I've experienced that multiple times in my career. Travers is one of those examples. I had a phenomenal team that I worked with, great partners, and we were able to pull it off.
Well, here's the funny thing about that as well too. So like kind of we're electricians at our core, right? In terms of like the professional side of things, and we've had a lot of conversations about that specific project, and even with our knowledge and experience in regards to like ground mounts, solar panel, whatever it is, that project blew our mind in terms of logistics, in terms of how to pull it off in that timeline. We still don't understand it. Like that realm of things, and touching on what you were speaking about in regards to teamwork, is that there's no single human that ever really gets anything done alone. You have to work together, right? And even the visualization piece, well, we 100% agree with you. And I think it's probably something that's worth exploring. That mechanism of who you are as a person, to be able to say that with absolute confidence as you just did, where did that come from? Like, how is it that you built up that skill set over time? Is this something that you kind of always knew, or like was something that you developed over time?
Yeah, probably just again, the way I grew up. I think my family was a very strong, positive influence. I feel very fortunate for that. I think my late father, he was my biggest cheerleader, and he always he was very hard on me. Like he had high expectations of me, but it gave me lots of opportunities. Tried to pave the way, and I try to do the same thing for my kids. Nowadays, I have my 3 kids of my own, but just kind of pave the way, and always encouraged me. He always said, "Danny, you can do whatever you set your mind to." And when you hear that enough times, I guess eventually you believe it.
Yeah,
I just believed it. I mean, it was these kind of big, bold ideas. They're not easy to pull off, right? So you come in and have confidence, and you could be confident enough to jump in. But there were many times where I was in there, and I'm like, did I make the right call? But then you can't get out, right? Once you're in, you can't just turn around and decide to change your mind.
Yeah.
You have no choice but to see it through. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, I was able to see through some pretty amazing ideas that our company came up with, that I got to lead. But it's never been easy. But fortunate for it having worked out.
Yeah, and you know what you reminded me of? There's this mentality that floats around, and ironically enough, it's one that floats around on social media in regards to let your actions speak for you. So like the whole like grind in silence and let your actions speak. I don't agree with that. And what you're talking about is a testament that even what we've experienced is a testament that is you put yourself on the line, you put your words out there, and then follow it with the actions. And the best part about it is you never know who's going to come across your path and help support that vision. On the negative side of it, which most people would consider negative, but I consider it a positive as well too, is that the haters or the people that don't believe you're going to do it give you so much energy in terms of them being like, yeah, that's way too crazy of an idea. You're never going to be able to do this. And I know that that's huge for you. Like that's probably like, it's like a setting. If you bug, like, sorry, I do this to you a lot, but this is just the friendship between the both of us. Is it fair to say that if somebody kind of tells you kind of to do something, it's like setting off a nuclear bomb inside of you, right?
100%, yeah.
He's training for an Ironman this year, and that was maybe a nuclear bomb that maybe somebody set off a few years ago. But either way, like I think there's so much good in being able to do these mega things, because for us, like that's now just a normal thing. Is like we call it like the pretty much round numbers, rounding really high, but like the $1 billion solar project in Alberta, right? That Amazon is kind of a part of, which is super cool to say in one breath. But speaking on Jack's your dad, right?
Yeah.
That's something that I think both of us can attest to. We both have good parents on both sides. Mom's very nurturing, very worried, never stop worrying. Dad's very stoic, very inspirational, but very supportive in their own way as well too. Do you remember a story like from when you were younger where your dad just grilled you or gave you a hard time, or maybe you just didn't hit a standard that you can share?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So when I was a kid, I used to play soccer, football, as you yeah, people over the pond, like to call it, from the other side of the pond, like Euros, Euros. So I played soccer, and I remember my dad on the sidelines calling me a turkey all the time. You turkey. So he's like, you were much more fascinated in watching the play unfold than actually participating in the play. so anyways, I don't call my son a turkey when he messes up in the turkey. I don't know why he chose the word turkey, but that's what he called me. But yeah, he was always hard on me. He was really, really honest with his feedback. I played a lot of sports growing up. I loved sports. I think sports is a phenomenal way of learning really important life lessons. Like as a kid, you play a sport, team sport is I think the best way to do it. Mm-hmm. You learn the idea of putting in the hard work, seeing the improvement, having to work with others and rely on others, and hopefully come together and have a common success. So I did a really cool thing this year. I coached my son's junior high basketball team. Nice. School that I went to also.
Oh, that's crazy full circle.
Yeah. And anyway, so boys are great. My son and his friends, who a number of them I have watched grow up, right, and are actually the kids of some of my friends. So really cool. And they started off a little questionable, but they worked really, really hard. We ended up winning the championship.
Oh, yeah.
49-48 in overtime. It was a real battle. But
how was the celebration when the buzzer went off?
Oh, it was amazing. It was like, everybody jumped on. So yeah, CJA Hawks 2023-2024 city champions. So that was fun.
Impressive. That's your first year coaching.
So my first year coaching, I was coaching with my brother Jordan.
Jordan, yeah.
I was his assistant coach. My brother Jordan's a really, really great basketball player. My brother Jordan has been my business partner on this journey. We haven't talked about him a lot. And then I also worked with my other brother, Mike, has been, on this journey with me. And, it's really, phenomenal to have had, the opportunity to work with my brothers. We each have, different things that we bring to the table. But we all get along and, have done some really, really amazing things together. But I think, coming back to the sports is something that all three brothers and all three of us, I think, share a passion for. Yeah. And in particular, basketball. I'm a huge basketball fan. Love that we have the Calgary Surge in town. Love that you guys are sponsoring. I love that I have season tickets on the court. I have them again this season.
Nice.
Yeah, so awesome. I'll be seeing you guys there. Yeah, so there's a lot. We talked about some negative things, but there's lots of things that we could focus on and get really, really excited about. Calgary's got lots going on. We've all got lots going on, and adversity is sometimes part of the journey, and it's just how you deal with it.
Totally, and I think that's a good spin on it as well too. Is that foundational to everything that you're kind of speaking about? It seems like everything, as from the point that we started this conversation today to where we are right now, is just about family. Is that at the core of everything? And family isn't exclusively defined by blood, right? Like I consider Kai my brother. Like the things that we've gone through, I think only family could tolerate. But we don't have brothers. We both have sisters. I have two sisters and Kai's one sister. So it's kind of like a missing puzzle piece in one odd way. But even in Alberta, I think that's maybe a good way of putting it. Is like we're almost having like a family level argument right now. So let's try to get all on the same table and kind of get back on track and get everybody, back to agreeing on things. But in regards to Jack, and I have to ask, I mean, you had the turkey moniker. Did your brothers have any funny names as well too?
No, not nothing that I can think of. Oh, it's a funny story. So, my dad had an office, and we were to press the intercom to get in. My brother and I were trying to go into the office. there was another guy with us, and we're like, hey, we're here. And my dad's like, yeah, come on up, sweetheart. And the other guy looked at it, he's like, oh, can I join you guys? So my dad, that was weird. But anyways, my dad was affectionate. He was a very affectionate guy, right? Calling my brother sweetheart. He thought he was different. Here's a man's voice calling him sweetheart. He thought something else. But my dad was very. He had so he had affectionate names. Would call me like
Switched it.
Hey, Lovey or something. Even when I was like an adult man. So that was kind of weird. But he was an affectionate guy. He didn't care. He loved his family. I really miss him. It's been almost 10 years since he passed. Not almost 10 years. It has been more than 10 years. 10 years in February was the anniversary of his passing. I miss him all the time. And so I have my 3 kids now. I have 2 older daughters, 19 and 16, and a 14-year-old boy. And like family is super important to me, and I really try to think about sort of lessons that I want to pass along to my kids. If you ask them, I probably have my own weird things that I do, but I don't think I do the same weird things. But sports is something that I'm really fan of. My son, one of my daughters was into sports. My other daughter's into theater and performing, but. Really trying to encourage them all to pursue, whatever they're passionate and give them a lot of encouragement along the way. I just got engaged on the weekend.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah. So,
Congrats.
So the kids are from my first marriage, and now I just got engaged. So we all need more love in our lives. We all need more love in the world in general. It doesn't feel like the world's got enough love at the moment. It seems a little conflict rid and intense. We need more love in the world. Yeah,
you know what the funny thing is, and there's a couple things I want to unpack there. But one thing I think is worth talking about is the poster behind you. So it's from Interstellar.
Well, I love that movie.
Very obviously, it's from Interstellar. It's Matthew McConaughey walking towards the ship on, I forget which planet it was from, but it was a planet where time was moving. I think it was equivalent to 20 to 1. There's 1 minute on this planet was 20 minutes on the spaceship or something like that. And by the time they got back, 20 years had gone by, and that they kind of left their comrade there on the ship by. But this movie specifically, Dan, is what actually launched the company. So Kai and I went and watched the movie Interstellar. At the end of it, we were both dead quiet. And then Kai suggested that we go to Cafe Med, and we had some shisha and some tea, and then we shook on the business at that same night. And the key to this movie, above all else, I watched it. And how many times have we watched it? Like 20, 30 times. I don't even know how many times we watched it. Make it a habit of watching it once a year. There's 2 movies. Jurassic Park and this movie. Watch them every single year.
I love this movie also.
It's fantastic.
That is Alberta's.
But it gives you the single most important lesson in life, I think, in one sentence, is that they talk about physics in this movie. They talk about overcoming odds. They talk about everything. But the single most important thing is the end of the movie where Matthew McConaughey has achieved all these things. Humanity is now secure. And the one thing that he chooses to pursue at the end of the movie is love. And they say this very, very special line in that movie. They say the one thing that transcends time and space is love. Or love is the one thing that transcends time and space. And it's true. Everything else can be measured with that. That's something that hits you on every part of your being as a person is love. So I agree with you. I think it's probably something that's undervalued nowadays. We live in a very temporal society where everything is very fragmented and people are, just very momentary and chasing the next big thing. But when you do stop and think and try to evaluate what's important, it always ends up coming back down to love, right? So it's cool. It's cool that you say that. But yeah, it's interesting, and I have to ask, and I suppose this is kind of the 2024 question. Did you propose, or were you proposed to?
Oh no, I proposed. On the weekend in Banff.
Is it a story worth sharing?
Do you want to flex no, it was, but there's, can I actually share something cool about Interstellar?
Yeah.
So, opening scene, Interstellar, what do you see?
Oh, wait, it's
the wind
Alberta.
farm.
Alberta, yeah.
Guess whose wind farm that is, or guess who developed that wind farm? That's our Black Spring Ridge.
So
I'm almost certain that's the Black Spring Ridge project.
We watched the river
yeah.
kind of meet Dan.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that was in Windy Flats.
Yeah.
That entire, I think they call it Windy Flats is the nickname for it, but it's southern Alberta.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the way to Waterton, right? So,
Well, I think it's around there. Yeah, really cool, right? The Alberta connection in that story. Yeah, my engagement story is it was just a nice romantic evening in Banff. She had an idea that it was happening. I mean, we've been together a long time.
Yeah.
But it's great,
Yeah.
great to take that step and give that symbol of our love and commitment. And so
That's awesome.
So I'm excited about our
huge.
future together and our 21st century family. My kid's mom is also engaged to a really nice guy, and we all still get along, and we can be in the same room, have family events together, and have this nice big 21st century family.
and that's a beautiful thing in itself. I think that, and I have 3 kids myself, obviously, as you know, but I find that the household is the testing bed for everything that they're going to experience in life. So you might as well have, you don't want it to be a perfect experience. You want it to have at least a certain level of volatility and hardship built into it so that you can teach the children how to overcome it. But I think the terminology they use nowadays is like the 21st family or the blended family, right? And that's super inspiring to hear, because I know there's a lot of people out there that go through those hardships with their families, but to hear that, you're able to pull it together is pretty cool to see. And yeah, congrats on the engagement, man. That's I guess the next, now you have another phase of your life that's starting as well too, right? And it's all of it is grounded here in Alberta. And I know there's people that listen to this podcast that are from other parts of the country, or maybe even other parts of the world. But I consider us to be pretty fortunate to live here. And this is such an amazing place. And I think that energy needs to keep on pushing forward, which leads to one of my last questions here is that imagine your kids are listening to this podcast, right? I've had I don't think I've met all your children, but at least not more directly, but for sure I've met a few of them. And we've heard about your mom today. We've heard about your father today. But realistically, and for my real core reason as to why I even got into this business is a phrase that Kai has capsulized the best that everybody kind of knows about. It's leave it better than you found it. I think it's one of the founding principles that your parents taught you when you were growing up, right? Mm-hmm. If you could send a message to your children, what would it be?
That pursue your passion, like be open-minded, find something that you're passionate about, and pursue it. And hopefully that is directed and something that is doing good in the world. And don't be concerned about it having to be a business thing or even a grand thing. Just find something, even small acts of good, small things that we do to take the world in the direction that we want it to go is a worthwhile undertaking. And be happy.
And be happy.
Yeah.
That's probably a beautiful thing to add on a podcast. We started off hot and heavy and we're ending on be happy. I don't think that's a better ending to this conversation. So Dan, first and foremost, thank you for, everything that you've done in this industry and setting the example that you have as an individual and whatever hardship that you've come along, showing that, there's a path forward that's healthy and where everybody feels like they can win. So I want to personally say thank you. You've been an inspiration to us. And obviously, Kai, share your thoughts as well too, but maybe I individualize this. You've been directly an inspiration to me over the years when we first got into this industry, knowing that amazing things can happen. And Interstellar was one of those moments, right, where we're like, holy crap, he made it to Hollywood, but solar, right? So it's, or with wind, sorry. But I mean, it's super cool to be able to see you do that inspiration because it's trickled over to us. So, Jack left his legacy and I can tell it's, the love that he provided to you and your family and so on and so forth. And just know that the legacy that you've kind of left has been imprinted on us as well too.
Yeah, 100%. Not much I can add to that other than one of the interesting things that you said is those few words that made you go after that biggest solar project. I think we can directly relate to that. Now that I think about it, probably is an influence from you being able to do that. I think we always looked at that as like what you've achieved here in Alberta is such a big thing to put us on the map. So a lot of respect for that. And I think for us, it was when COVID hit, it was like, let's be the biggest residential solar company in Canada. And we did the exact same thing as you. And I think it's influence from what you've brought to this space and been able to do. So thank you. And yeah, I think there's lots of exciting things. We started with the negatives and on the positives, and this industry is just getting started. Like there's so much more to do here in Canada and for the world. And I think it's cool that there's amazing people like this at the front of it. So.
Well, thank you for saying that. If that's truly the case, then it's mission accomplished for me. Like, if I could have influenced you to continue the chain and continue doing this great work, I wish you guys the best of luck. And I hope you surpass, meet and exceed, and whatever we've accomplished. And we need lots of people, doing what we do. So I wish you guys the best of luck. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Sweet.
Awesome. So for those who are watching, if you guys want to catch more episodes, please visit our YouTube page or any of our social media pages that can be found under Zeno or Zeno Renewables. Or if you want to find out more about our solutions, visit us at www.livezeno.com, and you can learn more about us and what we do.
Yeah, and then like, subscribe, share with your friends if you like the podcast as well. Thank you.